All right, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome into the Rocky Top Insider Postgame Show. This is Ryan Shumpert. I'm Rick Bowler, standing here in Food City Center after Tennessee's season-opening win over Gardner-Webb. Tennessee wins by a score of 80-64. It wasn't the most efficient start to the game.
Yeah.
It was not a great close to the game, but Tennessee did what they needed to do in the middle to handle their business. What do you think of tonight's contest?
Yeah, I mean, you said it. Tennessee, it was a little bit of a slow start. Nothing really jarring there, and then a pretty bad finish.
Yeah.
Maybe jarring wouldn't be the right word. They were up by 27, as much as 27 at one point. I think it was an 18-4 run in the midst of that, a 10-0 run for the running Bulldogs. But no, I mean, I thought Gardner-Webb played well. I think they deserve some credit. And Rick Barnes is not one that's afraid to rip his team when they win a game like this, and he didn't seem overly concerned, or at least gave a lot of the credit to Gardner-Webb as much as the blame. And look, he said they had to be better down the final 5 minutes. They did not play well. He took a lot of blame himself, saying we didn't look like a well-coached team down the stretch. But just as a whole, a solid opener for Tennessee. Not a great one. You saw what you, I guess, wanted to see with some offensive stuff, both at the rim and hitting some perimeter shots compared to the exhibition game. And then the defense that wasn't super crisp, but as a whole, a solid opener for Tennessee before things get a lot more real on Saturday.
No doubt about it. And I think one of the big storylines coming out of this game, what a lot of people are going to want to be talking about, is none other than Tennessee's transfer guard Chaz Lanier. Welcome to the show. Had a little bit of a slow start maybe against Indiana in the exhibition game.
Yeah, you can say.
You were here, so you might know better than I am. But he leads Tennessee with 18 points here on Monday night. 4 of his 7 makes on the day were from three-point range. Looked like he had a shot in his bag tonight.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, that's what Tennessee brought him here to do. He was at least arguably, maybe just definitively the best shooter in the transfer portal this offseason, and that's why he was so coveted by a lot of teams, and why it was such a big get when Tennessee landed him. So you saw him hit shots. You saw the way that he has both a lot of range on that jump shot, and he gets it off so quick. It's tough to defend when he gets it going. So he had a really nice night. Another guy that did was Jordan Gainey.
I was just about to ask you. Wait, let me set up my question.
Okay.
You asked Cade Phillips during the postgame press conference, what is the biggest difference between Jordan Gainey then and now, basically a year ago to the start of this year? I'll ask you the same thing. What do you see from Jordan Gainey that looks a little bit different?
I think there's just a comfort level. And look, some of it's Gardner-Webb as opposed to playing in the SEC. He went to USC Upstate, right? I bet he honestly probably played Gardner-Webb at some point, given those two schools are in the same state. So, you want to see it against better competition stuff, but he just looks more comfortable out there. It looks like he's more adjusted to the speed of the game at this level, and you saw that as the year went on. He probably played his best basketball last season in the NCAA tournament. Had a couple really nice performances in March. So I think he looks different that way. I think he just more decisive with the ball. Rick Barnes talked a lot about how much better he is. He's kind of a pick-and-roll ball handler now, and to me, he almost looks like one of Tennessee's best options is someone that can create off the dribble besides Sakai Ziegler. That's probably not a great thing for Tennessee because I don't think he's great at that, but I do think he is better than where he was last year. And Tennessee's going to need a couple guys to emerge and be able to create some offense besides Sakai, which to me is another thing I thought they were pretty good at tonight. Much better. Sakai played 32 minutes. Those 8 minutes he was on the bench. I thought they were much better at creating offense, and it didn't look like it did against Indiana when he went out.
Yeah, and Jordan Gainey, really looking at him to kind of find his stroke, find his game a little bit in these non-conference games. Just like you said, we know he's going to be important come SEC play later on in the year, but maybe these are the type of games where he can really get his feet under him. You talked about confidence. Coach Rick Barnes talked about Jordan Gainey having more confidence in his play, and Cade Phillips mentioned that as well. So I think that is definitely a commonality when you're talking about Jordan Gainey.
Yeah, for sure. I shout out Evan Mayakawa. I believe I pronounced that right. He has a good college basketball site, and he definitely he tweeted it out and then sent it to me on Twitter last week or X, and I was messaging with him. Jordan Gainey was like one of the top 10 players he was predicting to have a biggest shooting or jump in three-point percentage. I think Jordan Gainey shot 29% last year. He was much better in 2 years. He was at USC Upstate. I think he had him shooting 37%, and I think he's going to shoot closer to what he did at USC Upstate, and that with more minutes, with a little bit more comfortability, just as improvement. It always annoys me. This is off-topic grammar thing. It's not progression to the mean. It should be progression to the mean when you get better. It's still regression to the mean. But that being said, I think you're going to see him regress to the mean with his shooting percentage a little bit.
In a good way.
In a good way, yes. And him be a much better, much more productive offensive player for Tennessee this season.
He goes 50% from the three-point range tonight to 2 of 4 shooting. Another guy that I want to talk about is Felix Okpara. Did not have a good game in his season opener tonight. But we did learn in the post-game press conference, Rick Barnes says that he's been dealing with a, quote, serious hip pointer. So I think that obviously might have slowed him down a little bit. What did you see there?
Yeah, I think when you talk about just in the night, he just looked uncomfortable offensively. Threw up some bad shots, had, I think, 3 turnovers, wasn't very good on that end. And I thought, honestly, just lacked a little bit of burst on both the offense and defense end, which makes sense when you talk about the hip pointer. Tennessee's kind of in a, I don't know if a bind's the right word, but they're just in a tricky spot. They don't have a lot of front court depth. JP Estrella was a game-time decision tonight originally. It told Rick Barnes that he wasn't going to play after shoot-around, decides to play. He's been banged up all offseason. D-Stone Dubar is not a 5, but a stretch 4 type of guy. Misses tonight with due to some personal reasons. So Tennessee's just thin in the front court right now. And while guys aren't missing a ton of games, Estrella's not 100%, Okpara's not 100%, and Tennessee figuring out how to rest these guys and get these guys to 100% while not dropping games early in the season is just going to be a fascinating situation to see how they handle. So I thought that was one of the more interesting pieces coming out of the night on a spot where Tennessee's already kind of thin and already banged up. Their best guy is also dealing with something.
Yeah, and you talk about the not a ton of depth there in that area. So it's also an area where Tennessee's going to have to step up. Rebounding, going to be important for this team moving forward. Tennessee loses the rebounding battle here tonight. Again, Rick Barnes, like you had mentioned earlier, he did give credit to Gardner-Webb and what they were able to do. And I would imagine that some of that is due to Felix Okpara's limitation with the hip pointer as well. But that can be that's a stat that can be picked up on. Certainly the Gardner-Webb head coach really kind of hammered that home in his post-game press conference, where he was really proud of his team.
Yeah, I think when you just look at the stat sheet, that was the most worrisome thing for Tennessee tonight. I think 32-29.
Yeah, that's how I wanted to say it.
And then on the offensive side, more offensive rebounds for Gardner-Webb than offensive rebounds for Tennessee. So that was definitely concerning. One game, maybe hit the panic button or anything on it, but certainly something to watch going forward.
Any other takeaways from the I almost said exhibition game? We're past exhibition season, now into the regular season as Tennessee wins their first game of the year. Any other takeaways from the contest tonight?
Thought Cade Phillips played well tonight. He looked good. I'd like to see Igor Milicic be a little more assertive. I think I said that with Ben McKee in our post game after the Indiana game. I thought he did a good job of letting the game come to him and did some nice things. But at some point, I think he's a guy that could really affect Tennessee's ceiling. Not a great night for Cam Carr, I didn't think. But as a whole, a solid night for Tennessee. A lot to build off of. Tennessee's defense, I thought, not up to the standard that is a very high standard.
Yes.
I didn't think it was up to that. But I wrote about that in I guess I don't know if it was one of my preview pieces. I think maybe 5 questions on the team is like how long does it take Tennessee to get in form defensively? You lose a guy like Josiah Jordan-James, you lose a guy like Santiago Vescovi. Those guys were just glue guys and tied everything together for Tennessee defensively. A lot of new faces, a lot of guys that transfers that came in that weren't known for their defense. I think it's going to take a little bit of time, and that was evident.
Yeah, that's that cohesion element. And Rick Barnes said for the game, he said, hey, look, we're not the same team that we were a year ago. We're going to have to continue to grease the wheels to get things going, to get where they want to be. Again, though, Tennessee gets their first win of the season in the season opener right here in Knoxville, Tennessee, with an 80-64 win over Gardner-Webb. Anything else you want to hit?
No.
All right, well, that's going to wrap us up here for today, the first of many, many, many post-game shows right here on the court at Thompson Bowling Arena. This is Ryan Shumpert. I'm Rick Butler. Make sure to stay on the lookout for more RTI Press Pass podcast content coming up later in the week. Got some more football to talk about, and certainly now that the basketball season is here, it is crossover season in Knoxville, Tennessee, and we will be here for the whole thing. Thank you very much for listening. Again, Tennessee gets their first win of the season, 80-64 over Gardner-Webb. It's Ryan Shumpert. I'm Rick Butler. It's been the Rocky Top Insider Postgame Show.